time, my name is Miranda, and today I am here to do my November wrap-up. We only have 2 wrap-ups left, people. And then it's 2016. Like, where did life go? And November, I have to say, I got off to a pretty strong start reading books, and then I had to read a certain book that was 800 pages, and it took me a little while to get through that, and then my reading kind of slowed down after that because I need a little break from an 800-page book. I was like, let's just ease our way back into it. I definitely read a lot of interesting books, and now I'm here to share them with all of you. Let's get started! So first up this month, I read A Madness So Discreet by Mindy McGinnis, and as you can see, I liked it so much that I went out and bought it. And this book is kind of indescribable in a way, but it's very creepy, very gothic, and very thriller-esque, and I loved it so much. It's about a girl, Grace, who at the start of the book is locked up in a mental institution. She hasn't talked in the entire time that she's been there, but something happens that causes her to be forced down into the dungeon, and a doctor finds her there. He wants her help in solving some crime scenes that he goes to because he sees that she is very smart and she has a very good memory. So they get her out, and then the whole story is about them solving this mystery that they have going on about a serial killer. It's very interesting. The characters are so amazing. I'm in love with these characters. They're so awesome. And the best part is there is not a explicit romance. Like, there's kind of a thing where it could be more if there's more books in the series, but there's no explicit romance in this series, and I think that was a really nice change of pace. It was just on the focus of Grace and developing her character, and I really loved it, and I definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. After that, I read a huge book, which is Zeros by Scott Westerfield, Margot Lanigan, and Deborah Cody. It's something Italian, who knows. And this book, I have to say, I didn't really love it as much. There were a lot of character point of views in this. It's about 6 kids who have special powers, but all these special powers come with a price. So for instance, one girl can see out of every single person's eyes, but she's blind, so she actually can't see herself. She has to see from other people's point of views. And the thing is, at the start of the novel, the group of 6, like, something forced them to go their separate ways. They got into a fight that is always alluded to, but you're never really told, like, what happens. And it's strange in the way it's written because it feels like I missed a book in everything, how they keep talking about this big fight that happened that I never saw, and it feels like I'm missing a book, like I didn't read the first book. But this is the first book, so I did. So I didn't really love it. I never really got into a lot of the characters, but it's not bad, it's just not my taste, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I read Famous Last Words by Katie Allender, and if you know anything about my relationship with Katie Allender, I'm loving her books right now because she's an amazing horror writer, and this book definitely did not disappoint. It's about a girl who moves to Hollywood with her stepfather and her mother, and she discovers a rash of serial killings that are going on that are staged in ways that look like famous death scenes in movies. She gets drawn into this from a presence, like a spirit, that is seeking out to her and trying to have her help solve who the murderers are. But the only thing that I didn't like about this book was the killer for me was really easy to figure out. Like, I figured it out basically as soon as he was introduced. Because when you basically have 3 people who are kind of like those side characters where you narrow it down like this has to be the killer, and the main character Willis, she was suspicious of 2 of them, it's kind of obvious to figure out which one is going to be the killer when it's the one that she's not suspicious of at all. And it's also just, I feel like it's not bad, it was definitely really scary. Like I said, I just wish it wasn't as easy to figure out the killer because that definitely took away some of the mystery of it, because you're supposed to be like, who's the killer? And I had figured it out by like page 15, so it's like, this isn't really as suspenseful anymore, but it was definitely scary, definitely creepy, and I definitely loved it. 4 out of 5 stars for me. After that, I read 6 of Crows by Lee Bardugo, I don't know. I thought I really wasn't gonna like this book because I don't typically like fantasy, but it was flippin' amazing. And it was like one of those books, like halfway through reading it, I realized that, like, yes, I love the characters, but like what really makes me love the characters is the relationship with other characters, if that makes sense. Like, I'm like, I like Kaz, but I like him better when he's with that girl whose name I can't pronounce. That's the other thing with fantasy, why I don't like reviewing books with fantasy. I can't pronounce half their names, or half the places, or anything, and I just end up butchering it. But this is a really great book, and you should definitely check it out. It's about 6 outcasts from society who come together to try and pull off this impossible heist, and it is set in the world of the Grisha trilogy. right? Grisha, that's how you say it. I have never read Shadow and Bone or any of those books, so I'm sure there's like a couple like little Easter eggs I'm missing, but you can love this book just as well without having read the first one, because I did it, and I definitely give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my new favorites. After that, I read this baby, Winter by Marissa Meyer, the final book in the Lunar Chronicle series. And I have to be honest, I had doubts about how well this was going to be able to wrap up and how well everything was going to tie together. And yes, it is 800 plus pages, which it doesn't look as big for some reason, I feel like, as it should for 800 pages. Like, I feel like it should be like... But I guess they did the font or something to make it. But anyway, it's an amazing, amazing conclusion, and you meet Winter in like all her crazy gloriness. We met her in Crest, but now you really get to meet her, and you meet Joaquin, her guard, whatever his name is, and Scarlet's back, and Wolf, and Cinder, and Cress, and Thorn, and Kai, and everyone, and I just loved it so much. It was such an amazing, amazing wrap-up. I honestly am astounded by how well this was. I definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. After that, I finally got around to reading Sweet Temptation by Wendy Higgins, which is the 4th book in the Sweet Evil series, which is really just Kynan's version of the events that happened in the previous 3 books, but now they're all smushed together in one giant book. And it was interesting for the most part. Like, I only gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I feel like some parts, to get 3 books down to 1, like, we had to skip things. And if you haven't read the previous book, like, even reading it actually, because I read them, and I read them like a year ago, so I didn't remember everything. So like when we like skip chunks and then Caden's like, oh no, this isn't good. I'm like, what happened in the book? I can't think of what happened. So like, I wish it had been a little more cohesive, but I mean, it's Kaiden, it's hot, I mean, they make out a lot, it's fun, you get to see how much he really cares about Anna and how much he's been protecting her from the start, and I enjoyed it. It's just not as great as the final book, but it's definitely a nice addition to the series, and I would highly recommend it if you enjoy the series, but I'm sure you already picked it up if you enjoy the series, but if you didn't, do it, because I think you should, so there you go. Last up this month, I read The Sacred Lies of Minnow Bly by Stephanie Oakes, I think is how you say her last name, and this is about a girl who escaped from a cult and had her hands cut off in the cult, and now because everything that happened with the cult, the FBI is like looking into the cult, ends up in juvenile detention, but she makes a deal that she'll help them figure out what happened in the cult, and they'll help her like get her freedom and get out of juvenile detention. But I gotta say, the less you know about going into this book, the better. So I'll just read the description because I feel like that sums the book up nicely with kind of this like cat and mouse game that we have going on between Minnow and the FBI agent. And it is, he watches me a moment and I wonder if he can read in my expression that I will never tell him the truth. I'll give him a version of events, a half-truth, but I haven't told anyone what happened in those smoke-filled moments in January when I stood over the prophet's body and watched him breathe his last ungodly breath, and I never will. It's a really interesting, like I said, back and forth between us trying to figure out what happened and Minnow kind of dealing with the outside world, and it's really like creepy how much it explains like cults and how people can just be brainwashed into believing this thing that is absolutely ridiculousness when you read it outside of the context. And it was a really good book. I definitely recommend it. It's definitely different than everything that I usually read, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars just because I wanted a little more oomph, a little more action and stuff like that, but it was definitely very interesting. And the only thing I'm confused about is like what time it took place. Like, this could take place in the 80s or it could take place like in 2010. And I don't know which one, and it confuses me, but yeah, 3 out of 5 stars for me. So there you have it. Those are some of the books I read in November. If you want to check out all the books I read, you can go to my Goodreads, add me as a friend. I'm always looking for more friends and more book recommendations, and also feel free to leave any books that you read down below in November that you really liked or really hated. I'm free to hear and rant about either one. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also, make sure to subscribe to my channel down below to be told to make all sorts of new videos, and thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you had a great November. Bye!